Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Welcome everyone who is on the call. I see that we have quite a few participants and counting. I'm sure we will get a few more as the session kicks in. I'm Nazreen Ibrahim, hosting the session for this evening as a representative of the Minara Chamber of Commerce. It is wonderful to have you join us. Today we're talking about owner-managed businesses, and I'm quite thrilled as I'm also an owner-managed business. I'm very keen to hear from our wonderful partners at FTI Consulting. We have the director, Aamena Nagdee, and representing from corporate finance is Donna. These lovely women will be taking us through this very interesting topic, also coming out of COVID lockdown. We know the whole deal and the jazz around it, and what we need to think about and learn as we move going forward. This webinar is the beginning of a series that we will be going into in the new year, making sure that business owners are always equipped to tackle the daily issues that we face. Aamena, over to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nasreen. Hi, everybody. Good evening and assalamu alaikum. I think just before I start, my name is Aamena Nagdee. I'm a senior managing director at FTI Consulting. Just a background of FTI Consulting. So we are a global advisory firm of about 7,000 people, and we operate across 30 countries. We listed on the Nasdaq, and we have a market cap of about $6 billion. And I think the disciplines that we offer include corporate finance and restructuring, economic consulting, forensic litigation, strategy, communications and technology. And I think just to start off with today's topic, family businesses are fundamental to the business landscape and are essential to our economy. The challenges faced by today's family businesses are without a doubt greater than ever before, as we are competing in a more turbulent environment dominated by diverse social and ethical values. There's intensified competition. We have a global economy that is impacted by ongoing wars. We have supply chain constraints. We just got through a pandemic. Locally, we are faced with electricity and power disruptions, corruption, and rapidly changing politics and regulation. Then again, there is blockchain and the metaverse, and that's quite a bleak picture. Compounding such challenges are the complex relationships that exist between family members and the balancing act required to combine family and work relationships. Another challenge is the ability or lack thereof due to fear to re-image the current ecosystem within the family business, that is taking the business to another level, in most cases with a strategic partner, be it a corporate, a private equity firm, or even floating the company on any stock exchange. There is no one rule that governs all. Every family business is unique, deriving its character from generations of family and business heritage. I think tonight's discussions will focus on the challenges faced by owner-managed businesses, and based on our experience, we will provide insights on how to ensure success and longevity. And now I hand over to my colleague, Donna, to talk about some of the challenges on family-owned businesses.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Donna Gray, and I work in the corporate finance team at FTI Consulting, particularly in the mergers and acquisitions team. And I work quite closely with owner-managed businesses with the rest of the team when they are looking to do transactions, either acquiring businesses or selling parts of their business. And this is where we have gained our experience in the past decade or so, working with family-owned and owner-managed businesses. I'm going to share my screen for a moment to just share with you some of the challenges that we have seen family-owned business coming across in their day-to-day business operations. Can you see my screen, Aamena?
Yes, thank you, Donna.
Okay. So some of the things that are challenges faced by family-owned and owner-managed businesses. The biggest thing, as you can see, that's shining in the orange over there, is succession planning. I think for all family-owned businesses, this is something that potentially is sometimes the elephant in the room, and sometimes businesses do this really well. But it's definitely something that is not only for owner-managed and family-owned businesses, but all businesses, something that is particularly of relevance post-COVID. Cash flows is another one. Innovation. Post-COVID recovery is something that many businesses are talking about. Access to capital, generational differences, resourcing constraints, control and how to govern that control, and then also navigating change with change in ownership, change in technology. We're living in such a rapidly changing environment, particularly in a business environment, that change is something that every business needs to be aware of. And that's linked with the innovation as well. And then something we see a lot in family-owned and owner-managed businesses is this idea of intellectual property that sits in your head. And this is where a business has been built and grown over many generations or many years and decades. And processes and know-how and the real sort of ingredients of that business are kept in the owner's head. And this is something that we see as a challenge in many businesses, particularly when there's time to bring in the new level of leadership or bring in, as Aamena said, an external party as a new investor to bring in access to capital or strategic direction. The other thing is conflict, and we'll touch on that a little bit as well, particularly in family-owned businesses. Access to new business, strategic direction. Owner-managers who have run and grown their businesses know what they do very, very well. But sometimes there's another party that they can bring to the table that has a different level of ideas to encourage broader thinking and to grow that strategic direction. So these are many challenges that are faced by owner-managed businesses, and Aamena and I are going to get into just a few this evening. So maybe we should skip to the next slide and think about planning for our future. We've come through 2.5, almost 3 years that have been nothing that we could have planned for, but there are some things that family-owned businesses and owner-managed businesses can start thinking about for the future. And the first most obvious one is succession planning. So Aamena, yes, let's chat about succession planning and just some of the things that you've come across in the owner-managed businesses that you've worked with.
Thank you, Donna. So with regards to succession planning, I mean, there's always a kind of hesitance to bring the younger generations into the family business, and for many reasons. For example, I think the younger generations they constantly challenge the older generations, or alternatively, you have the next generation that is not interested or is not available to take over the business. And I think in terms of the advice that we can give you is that the management team in any business is critical. The owner needs to expand the inner circle to skill up and empower the next generation in key areas, whether it be finance, procurement, and sales. And upon joining, the junior members should follow some kind of a planned training and development program and not be subject to any kind of preferential treatment and be expected to earn the respect of their fellow family members and colleagues. And I think a positive of bringing the younger generation into your business is that their knowledge and exposure to many technologies and digital solutions can be pivotal to take the business to a new level.
Yeah, absolutely, Aamena. I think what we've seen on the transaction side is where private equity investors, particularly, they find a really good family-owned business that they'd like to partner with, and the management team is absolutely critical. And they need to have had experience to be able to step up to take on that role to grow the business at that next level in partnership with the external investors and the person who built that business, the main shareholder. And you know, the next generation doesn't have to come from external. It could be part of the family, the next generation that's taking the business forward from inside of the family. And that, I think, is just as critical, to have those conversations, to share the knowledge, you know, to identify who, as early on as possible, who could step into that role to grow the business and take it to the next level, and then to nurture them, to get them to think, to get them to learn. I've learned and I've seen many family-owned businesses will get their next generation to climb up through the business, to work their way up, to start at the bottom, to get a proper good understanding of what it takes to be part of that team, to be part of that business. So yes, succession planning is something I think that that is required in any business, and one that does take quite a lot of thought and planning, and is critical, I think. So as part of that, Aamena, I think there's this idea of having to share and develop the next generation, and this is the in your head IP that we were talking about earlier. What are some of the things that you've seen around this?
Okay, thank you, Donna. So in terms of like in your head IP, I mean, owner managers have built their businesses over a number of years and sometimes decades as well, and they really document in their head IP. I mean, and this creates a major vacuum if something has to happen to them, or even when they need to start handing over the reins to the next generation. And I think it is essential for owner managers they need to start creating some kind of database, a manual of how the business works, with key roles and responsibilities, with the next generation management team, or even external investor has to come into the driving seat. This is one of the most frustrating areas on both sides, because I mean, what the owner manager knows in his head versus what I know in my head. So this always creates some kind of conflict.
And it takes time, because the person who has grown that business, or the team who's grown that business, has done so over a very long period of time. And to transfer that knowledge takes just as long. So I think this is something that's really important. I've also heard recently about families setting up, family constitutions to try and help with the handover of this thing, and the manuals that you were talking about as well, processes. I think a lot of conversations and decision making takes place over breakfast, or during weekends. And that kind of thing, I think, is absolutely wonderful. It's one of the very unique features of a family-owned business, which makes it able to react very quickly, which is an advantage. But I think there also is this element of needing to document those processes for the next group of people who are going to take that business to the next level. Aamena, the next one, which we thought of chatting about this evening, was just around recovery post-COVID, change, and resilience. I think we've come across many businesses who have done so well during the past couple of years, and who have adapted really well. But we also know of some businesses who have really struggled and had to dig deep for that resilience. So what are some of the things that you've seen here?
Okay, so I think, the impact of COVID was almost felt immediately in most industries. I think the first reaction of people was to either reduce spending and employment expenses, and many family-owned businesses turned to government programs like TERS programs for financial support. And while some of them did that, others looked to transform the businesses to reflect the reality of a changing global economy. I think in order to do this, it is essential for owner-managed businesses to understand the broader economic impacts and market forces. And I think those that understood what was happening to their business, they were able to quickly adapt and rebuild their business to tap into new opportunities. E-commerce, online shopping, pickup and delivery services. And I think the most important theme here is that as a family-owned business, you have to be resilient and agile and step up to transform your business. And above all, I think you need to exercise patience, as dark days don't last forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that element of patience is also something that comes with growing your business and navigating which journey, which path to take next in the ways of change. I think things that we've seen where family-owned businesses have done so well is exactly what you're saying about being able to make those quick decisions, to be able to be agile and make decisions much faster without maybe some of the red tape that a larger corporate might have. But in doing so, it's also working together and following that natural instinct that the owner manager's got. After building the business for so long, you've got that natural gut feeling around what should happen next. And sometimes that takes patience as well, to just wait a little bit to make the right call. And then you mentioned earlier also just around the next generation and innovation and change. What are some of your thoughts around that?
Okay, I think with regards to change, I mean, there's always this challenge of change in any kind of family business. I think with regards to families, they have a tendency to rely on the existing family members on the premise that they have a wealth of experience that they can draw upon that experience. And this can often be counterproductive, and it restricts the ability of the business to grow and develop. And I think there's always this kind of reservation to use external professional advisors, providing new skills and experience, because they can also like provide this independent objectivity not found among the family members. And I think with regards to that, I mean, a wealth of experience and advice can be provided covering both issues that are pertinent to the family business as well as to the family. And I think from a business perspective, I mean, advice can range from corporate restructuring through to international taxation and mergers and acquisitions. From a family perspective, it's all about the family governance frameworks, as well as tax matters, wealth management, and the structuring of both the financial and the non-financial assets to achieve succession planning and preservation of family wealth. And I think such advice is so useful because it can allow the business to grow and flourish. And I think on a final note, the ability to get in these professional advisors to navigate through sensitive problem areas, both within the business and the family, cannot be underestimated.
Yeah, absolutely, Aamena. And I think what you're saying about the use of external advisors is sometimes adds a different level of perspective, a new direction that potentially could be thought about to navigate that change. The next one, Aamena, that we spoke about, which is something that we see quite a lot in family-owned businesses, is governance, or the lack thereof, or sometimes the work that needs to be done around governance. And I think governance can sometimes be quite a scary word that sort of has a negative connotation around pages and pages of documents which are drafted and never looked at. But just what are some of the things that you've seen and some of the solutions and suggestions you have around governance?
Okay, so I think we need to treat a family-owned business like any kind of large entity or listed corporation. And you need to have these governance structures in place to ensure that both the business strategies are achieved and the business is seen to be credible. I mean, if you have these governance structures in place, it also helps to protect the normal business and also helps you to navigate against change, whether it's legislative or regulated. In terms of governance, when you talk about governance, I mean, they can be broken up into many categories. I mean, there's the financial governance, the control, operational as well. And I think if you don't have these proper management controls in place, I mean, it can stunt growth. In terms of financial and operational, I mean, this includes like separating the personal income and expenses from that of the business. In simple things like ensuring your VAT, your tax is correctly and appropriately declared and paid. I mean, the new legislation with regards to any anti-money laundering rules, I mean, are you adhering to this? And I think the new buzzword with ESG, this is reducing your carbon emissions. Are you considering these changes?
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely critical one to mention specifically, is the ESG. I think the environmental, social, and governance. And those three pillars, I think, are a big focus for investors at the moment. But also it's something that family-owned businesses can't ignore. It's their contribution to the environment, how their business is being run, and sort of waste management. There's then the social side, which is people, the impact on your community, and then the governance is the third element of that, which is exactly what Aamena has been explaining, just around processes and controls within the business. As a corporate finance M&A advisor, this is something that is looked at quite closely when there's a change of control from an external investor investing in a business. The governance is something that is considered, and you know, from a due diligence perspective as well. And often this is linked also to that IP in your head scenario, where there's a lot that happens in the business that's not documented, or the controls are there, but they're not many people know about them. And so I think that's something that family-owned businesses could probably pay a little bit more attention to as well as part of their governance package. Should we move on to the last one, Aamena?
Yes, Donna.
So the last one is around control and decision-making structures. What are some of the things that you have come across here in working with family-owned businesses?
So I think, this spans over quite a wide range. First, the thing with regards to control is like, before you get to control, the preoccupation of control, I think it's the transition from one generation to the other. And at times, this is really problematic. And I think for most family-owned businesses, this is something that was least planned for. And all too often, like business leaders, they continue well beyond what is necessary or reasonable in terms of alternatives for fear of ceding this control over to the family business. And I think with regards to like handing over the reins, consider like something like an implementation plans in any kind of mechanism to enable a smooth transition. And I think with regards to the transition in the plans, the plans need to be understood and accepted and agreed by all parties. In terms of another alternative is like consider a stage departure, with the business still benefiting from senior wisdom and experience, and the same time allowing this winds of change to blow. And I think also, with regards to this, there's always conflict resolution in any business. That's just normal because we are normal human beings and we all have different a kind of objectives and in different perspectives. But I think with regards to things like conflict resolution, there's nothing wrong in getting like external help when there is like some kind of conflict in the business. And I think finding such support can help professionalize the business and encourage families to consider their roles, the responsibilities, the composition of the board and management. And I think also with regards to the whole thing about control, it's like the power of women in family businesses. There's always been a segregation of roles based on gender, both at home and in the business. And I think it can be tracked back to the Industrial Revolution. Men are normally associated with traits as independence, autonomy, success, achievement, and women are normally seen as like this nurturing and kind of caring beings. And I think this unconscious gender bias still continues until today. And I think what family businesses need to think about is like this, although women, they have this caring nature, they have this innate characteristics of nurturers and caregivers, but this can translate to invaluable EQ to any business. Not only, they have like a unique transformational leadership style and skill and judgment. And this just makes the business a holistic kind of business. And I think also with regards to empowering women, it's so important because in the case of a demise of a spouse, to ensure longevity, you need to empower women in the business as well.
Absolutely, particularly the next generation. We were talking about the next generation of management team, that the next level of leadership. I think just allowing women and the next generation a seat at the table and allowing them to take part in those conversations. I think a lot of the time, if we allow our daughters and nieces to listen and take part in the conversation, we'll probably be quite surprised at the value that they could add. And the things that they could bring to that conversation. Just the last thing I wanted to add around decision-making structures is something that we've seen done really well is where, and particularly for conflict resolution, you mentioned, how families can do this well. And one of these areas is by having that family draw up a family constitution around how to deal with conflict when conflict arises. That there's a process that can be followed, that there's an external mediator that has been appointed by the family that can come in and help. For performance tracking, and just like you say, in any corporate, there are performance metrics and there are ways in which performance is measured. And getting an external party to come in that's independent to help in those decision-making structures, I think is something that definitely can add value. So those are just 5 of the many challenges that family-owned businesses have faced and can face. and just some of the things that we've come across that have worked well, or that family-owned businesses or owner-managed businesses can think about. Aamena, do you want to open the floor to some questions?
Sure, Donna. I think that's the end of our chat. So, it would be nice if any of you had some questions or some stories to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, the presentation was incredible. Very, very nicely done and succinctly put together, Donna and Aamena. For everyone on the call, questions coming through, we do have around 13 minutes for your questions. Aamena and Donna very nicely brought to our attention planning for the future, succession planning, in your head IP, recovery, child change, resilience, governance around ESG, and finally control and decision-making structures. So having those ideas in your mind, can we get the first question, please? I see Mohsin is unmuted. Mohsin, would you like to go ahead? Mohsin, sir, are you there? We can see you. You can go ahead. If you're feeling a bit shy at the moment and don't want to ask the question, it's quite all right. Can you hear us? Perhaps I'll kick off with a question because this was running through my mind as both you ladies were speaking. The question is, how soon should an owner-managed business begin developing standard operating procedures? How soon should they begin doing that?
At the inception of the business.
Without a doubt. So I think as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. Because I heard a comment that you made around the in your head IP, and you just continue in this. At what point is the critical change moment when you realize, hey, I've got to have a process flow in place for other people to follow should someone fall off the bus?
Yeah, I think
so,
go ahead,
Donna, go ahead. No, it's fine. You go ahead.
I think the sooner the better. I think what happens often is when the business grows and starts developing, things are not, that habit of documenting those processes and standard sort of procedures are not done as potentially had been started out. And so I think it's just developing that habit and discipline around putting those things together so that if there is a change of control or whatever the case may be, where someone else needs to quickly access that information, then it's there. It's around creating those processes and disciplines, I think.
I think the idea is around how to create those processes and disciplines. Where are they stored? How can you quickly access them? Who has access to them? How often are they changed? Those type of questions.
Exactly.
Please raise your hand by using the reactions features, or just put a message into our chat box if you wish to ask a question, and we will simply ask you to unmute. I see Nabil has his hand up, so we will. You are unmuted, Nabil. Go ahead.
Thanks, Asmin. To Aamena and Donna, so succession planning and / exit strategies is quite important for founders of businesses that have run it for 30 years and now are at retirement age, and at the age of 65 realize they need to do something with, or realize some sort of value out of the asset that they've built over the last 30 years. Whether it's succession planning through family members coming into the business or external investors like a private equity firm, that value still needs to be realized, and the founders need to be compensated in some form or another. So the question I have is, what are certain things that family-owned businesses or founders, besides we spoke about SOPs, what are a couple of other things that these entrepreneurs and founders should be thinking about, maybe in their, by their late 40s already, when they start planning for their retirement? Thanks.
Aamena, do you want to start that one?
So Nabil, I think there's quite a lot of things that you need to start thinking about. With regards to I mean, the first thing that you need to think about is succession planning. Who are you going to give the reins over to? I mean, is it your family business, or is it within the family, or the inner management team, or are you looking to exit to a private equity to take the business to another level? And even if you exit to a private equity, I mean, are you still going to hold some kind of share in the business? Are you going to walk away completely from the business? So, and I think in terms of like making the business ready for like some kind of sale or exit, I mean, it's basically just like, you know, do you have like this plan in place? Do you have your standard operating procedures? And in terms of your financials, I mean, in terms of like your, are your tax affairs like up to scratch? I mean, have you paid your appropriate taxes, your VAT? In terms of like the personal expenses, I mean, have you, what is the business expenses? What is your personal expenses? So I think there's quite a lot that you can do in terms of like making, you know, in terms of a business readiness kind of to make the business ready for either a sale or to get to hand over the business to the next generation. So I think it just depends on your kind of strategy. What do you want out of that?
And I think also considering what kind of partner you would like in that business. If there's not a next generation within the family to take over from you, then it's thinking outside of the family, who is going to be part of that inner circle, your inner circle that you've built, and what kind of characteristics do you want that partnership to have? Is it private equity where they will expect you to remain in the business for a few more years? Is it a corporate organization where they might change a lot more than a private equity would? Do you still want to be involved in the business? How much are you willing to give? How much do you want to keep? And so all of those, I think, is very important for an owner to think about as they're approaching that hurdle.
Those are such great points and comments to remember, because I think everyone at a varying stage of their business, whether they're larger, you know, legendary family-owned businesses, or they are owner-managed, built from the ground up, there is no immediate succession plan. But wherever you may be in the journey, those are important questions to remember. And I think what I'd also like to understand, because I don't see any hands up from our participants, nor do I see any messages dropped in the chat yet. So just to continue the conversation until we wrap up, is also Donna and Aamena. Tamendri has a question, so I'll quickly ask this. Some of the two top line things to remember when you are ready as a service-based business for growth, if you are looking for an investor or you're considering other options for investment to grow the business. This is something I'm also thinking around. See that we have a bit of feedback. You may have heard my question. Maybe let's pause on that and go to Tamendri. I would like to get her as a listener asking a question. Welcome, Tamendri. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, very interesting panel there. The business operational manual and the standard operating procedures, is there like a blank copy where we can just fill in our details, especially as a new business? We wouldn't know how to follow those procedures. Are there guidelines available for us to use to formalize these manuals?
Thanks, Tamendri, for the question. Is that the entirety of it, or do you have any other thoughts before Donna and Aamena move on? I think Tamendri might be done there. Donna, Aamena, you heard the question?
So maybe in terms of that, I think like every single business is unique, and it just depends on the complexity of the operations. So I mean, in terms of like standard templates and that, I mean, I think there is quite a lot that is available. You just probably have to like look and kind of search all of these things. But I mean, there will be templates and everything that is available, but I mean, just depending on the complexity of your business, I mean, it has to be tailor-made. So I'm sure there's quite a lot of things that are available on the on various sites. But maybe if you can be more specific, and maybe we can take this offline. If there's something specific that you're looking for, I mean, we could probably just look at that.
100%. I agree with that. Donna, anything to add there before we move on?
Nothing from my side.
All right, great. So it just makes me also think, it makes me think about when you're doing a lot of the planning, it seems we can't escape the admin at all. Those are the very foundations of a highly successful business, the numbers and the admin. And unfortunately, while we might hate them both, we need to do it to get our businesses off the ground, to grow and to get investors on board. I have a few questions, which I will take offline as well, around service-based businesses. They seem to be a little bit harder to structure in terms of value offering when you want to bring an investor on board. But I'll particularly talk to you ladies about that. We are heading to 7:37, a few minutes away. Final comments from yourselves, Donna and Aamena.
So I think basically from me, I mean, I just say stay focused. I mean, don't be afraid. Dream big, and be relentless in your mission, and hopefully your business can succeed.
And I think from my side, it's working with family-owned businesses is such a pleasure for me, because for me, it's so much more about the numbers and the SOPs. It's about the legacy that's being built and the people. And journeying with family-owned businesses through transactions makes me realize that even more. So I think each person on this call who has their own business, it's there as part of your growth journey and your legacy. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So thank you for allowing us to chat with you this evening.
That's wonderful. Aamena, please
Nasreen,
go
I
ahead.
think on a final kind of note, I mean, if anyone is like at that stage where they want to like grow their business, exit their business, or just want to have like a general chat with regards to their business, I mean, please feel free to contact us.
That's wonderful. And I've also dropped that little note in the chat. Please email the Minara office via email, kzn@minara.org.za, or GTN for the Gauteng branch at minara.org.za, or visit our website, minara.org.za. Aamena, Nagdee, and Donna Gray, you were wonderful, exceptionally wonderful on this session. And thank you so much for opening our eyes to the top line items that we need to remember when we start considering succession planning in the business. I know we will have more sessions with you coming up in 2023, and we thoroughly look forward to that. I'm a representative at the Minara Chamber of Commerce. I'm Nazreen Ibrahim. I'm also the CEO and founder at NAS Consulting International, which is a corporate communications business on the African continent, and a practicing AI ethics officer at Socially Acceptable. It's been wonderful having you on this session. Please remember to check out minara.org.za or our social media channels for all upcoming sessions. We thank you for your time and attention. That's the only way we could run this session, actually. And we will see you at the next session. Have a good evening. Assalamu alaikum and good night.